Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Kushmerek. I'm a senior engineer with Instart Logic. And before I begin the presentation on how you can drive revenue by improving cloud and mobile application performance, I'd like to note this cleverly disguised hat is actually a bowl. This bowl, if you come up and you put in your business card, somebody from marketing has purchased a nice iWatch. And if you're familiar with statistics and probabilities, you have a high probability, because of the low sample size in this room, of actually winning this Apple iWatch. So come on up, put it, well, not right now. Afterwards, that's fine. So, all right. I have 20 minutes to go through 15 slides prepared by a marketing guy who said to go ahead and modify a little bit. I have a couple of minders in the crowd to make sure I don't go too far off the marketing path, but I will try not to bore you to tears with that. So first of all, Instart Logic. We are a leading CDN out there. We have real customers. We do things at scale internationally. We're driving the Washington Post. We have Walgreens. We have Neiman Marcus. Actually, Neiman Marcus is a great story for us because one year they were bottom of the score in terms of performance for Black Friday. They actually had an outage. Then they switched over to us, and they went right to number one the next year, which is pretty cool. And we live this concept of performance and revenue. This is pretty much what our whole sales campaign targets, because we know that when you have a faster website, when you have a faster application, you are then dealing with higher revenue. And we have numbers to back it up as well. The best one, of course, is directly increasing conversion rates. That's something you can easily measure. We work with a company called Blue Triangle. I have some, they're kind of like Sosta. People have probably heard of Sosta. Akamai bought them, right? And by the way, Tammy Everett's Sosta, I don't know her personally, but I've read her blog for years. She's an absolutely great resource who also talks about this stuff, so you don't have to take it from me. But in any case, you can measure conversion rates based on performance. And you can also see a higher rate of customer satisfaction, which will then mean higher brand loyalty. And this allows you to start to build barriers to entry. You have a differentiation now. If you have a faster site, once it's responsive, whether it's on desktop or mobile, now you have a site that becomes sticky. People go to you, right? When they get a pattern. That whole thing about branding is actually forming a pattern around something people trust. Buy the product, come back to the product, get the stickiness going. And there's lots of numbers out there that show this, right? This one number here you see from the Aberdeen Group, 1 second delay in page load time, 7% loss in conversions. Add a second, conversions drop. 11% fewer page views as well. And then a 16% decrease in customer satisfaction. Now, of course, there's some point, because if you read it on the internet, it has to be true. This is one of those numbers I've seen around a few places, so who knows where it really came from. Originally, I saw a study from Kushmerek. They cited the same number, 16% decrease in customer satisfaction. But they also noted that 47% of customers expect a web page to load in 2 seconds or less. 2 seconds or less, they expect it to load. Everyone's on their phones now. Everyone's on too much coffee. They expect it all now, right? And 40% of people will abandon a website if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. It's kind of the way it is, right? So you're kind of at a hostage point, aren't you? You got to deliver it fast, but you have to deliver rich content. Well, we actually see this translate into revenue. We convert people over. We say, come on aboard with us, and we'll actually show you that you'll get more revenue when we are able to accelerate your site. And you see here, right? You know, this 2.5% percentage increase for just a 0 to 15% improvement in performance. They probably had some optimizations, not doing too badly, right? And then you see it just grows. 46 to 50% improvement in performance, 8.5% improvement in revenue. This is travel and retail sites. This is an aggregate view based on data that we're actually measuring right now. And you don't have to take it from us, right? If you read the Financial Times, they had a very similar thing as well recently. They were showing site users are 20 to 25% more engaged when they were able to drive down a median page load to 1.3 seconds. And ad inventory went up by 15 to 20% with higher viewability, more stickiness. That's great. That's great when you can get it, right? But where do you measure? Well, a lot of people like to look at the average. Average is something everyone can get into, the high and the low, right? The problem, of course, is that when you only look at the stuff way over on the right, you start to ignore all the stuff way over on the left. And if you're collecting rum, if you're using real user metrics, you know that there's an awful lot of people on that other side of that tail. And that's actually where your highest chance of performance gains are going to be. And we see this. Blue triangle is measuring rum for us. And a lot of the accounts we go to, they stick in a tag. We start to get baseline data. And then we convert them over. And we start to actually see, just based on the data that is just going with regular e-commerce, conversion rates. You have to know your conversion curve. You see here in this case, right, we've got this little line showing the conversion curve. And you see there's a peak conversion rate at 6.71%, right? And your page time load, it's under 2 seconds there. How to get to 2 seconds, of course. Part 2, not my presentation today. But that is the thing. So if you focus all of your attention on the average, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening over here. But what about all this stuff on the long tail over here? That's where your biggest gains can be made. And part of it, of course, is that you also have mobile. And mobile is a big part of this, right? Everyone's going to mobile now. But if you're bored of me, you're already on your phone. Okay? You go on the train, right? You've got kids at home. They're probably using tablets. Most people are converting over to iPads, other tablets. I've got a house full of tablets, old tablets, new tablets, right? We all know the story. Slower devices, slower CPUs. Suddenly, they're more subject to things that will slow it down. Third-party tags that take longer to load, right? The extra round-trip transmission, suddenly the CPU spikes. It slows everything down, right? You get into the layer 4 stuff about whether the stuff got there in time. All that stuff is worse on mobile because you're dealing with a wireless network. Wireless communications were not meant for fast communications. They're two opposing thoughts. And then on top of that, you then again have the problems with the platform, right? Just the fact that the machines themselves are slow. But it's where everyone's going. It's what everyone's using. And these page sizes are only increasing, and the lags are only getting worse. And of course, on top of that, there are lots of demands. You have lots of conflicts saying, we have to get more revenue, but you have to do more for us. I mean, who here needs more people to be hired on their teams? Right? They actually know, I need more people to get something done, right? I'm the guy in the back, of course, right? And you're always being told, do more with less, right? Work smarter, not harder. It's like, give me a break. How many people work on the weekends to try to get around a corner, right? That's part of that's just, growing up and doing business, I suppose. But part of it is that you're always being asked to do more. I want to be available on Android and iOS. Oh, and now there's a lot more people using Windows Mobile, so maybe I'm actually considering Edge, maybe. But then there's Chrome and there's Firefox, there's Safari. All these different platforms. And we're not even getting into the different languages. I read that Node.js is great stuff. How does that work? It's fundamental, right? What do? You're being told, develop for different applications, develop different platforms, right? And then you've got to factor in cloud services. You're working with a vendor. They've got their big server in the cloud. You have to call them to an API. And then there's security. Generally, when security gets in the way of the business, usually security loses. But guess what? In networking land, everyone expects to have some kind of penalty for performance. So usually security doesn't always lose. Sometimes the guys on the other end of the curve who aren't already getting fast performance, they just see a slight degradation. So you have a lot of competing interests here. So how can you take care of this, right? Do you use code or you use trickery, right? Sometimes I swear there's a very fine distinction, but you can optimize your images for every device type. You absolutely can, and maybe you should. And I've been at many companies, consulting role. People tell me like, oh yeah, I know we've got a whole production team, and then one of the last stages is that all of these creatives have to now develop images and push them out across multiple different platforms. And guess what? It adds like 3 weeks to your development cycle, right? Because you have to have everything sorted out, get the right size, right? Make sure that the conversion, doesn't look pixelated, stretch out all the rest. So you can't exactly automate something like this without keeping quality in mind, because this is a very visual platform we're talking about. So there's an issue there. It's a manual process. You can reduce your JavaScript footprint, and that means all kinds of stuff, right? So one of our competitors, big competitor, starts with an A. They're based out of the Boston area, right? They talk about minification of JS with FEO, front-end optimization. It's a fancy way of saying we have a lot of professional services. A lot of professional services to take things like JavaScript and optimize it for you manually, which now means that you have to do it page by page by page by page. So, all right, this page, if I want to now make a change to it, can I push out a change for something that's pending to the business, but does that mean I'm going to break all of the extra professional services that I've paid for to get it out there in the first place? Right? It's a delicate balance, right? But there's a lot you can do with JavaScript, right? Maybe you're going to take your CSS and implement it with JavaScript and put it all inside the headers. You try to figure out how you can just crunch stuff down. You can identify everything that can be static and try to have it cached at the edge. Again, it's a very valid strategy. I have customers, and they do exactly that kind of thing, right? They say, we're just going to do HTML caching, and we're going to do a lot of cache purges. Hundreds of thousands of cache purges an hour. That's a strategy, right? But of course, now again, you are talking about the cost of having people staying on top of something like that. Wouldn't it be nice if the HTTP header could always just be accurate and respected? I don't know. Wouldn't it be nice if we had world peace, right? You can defer loading your marketing tags until after the page becomes inactive. Now, I've definitely worked with a couple of people who've done this kind of thing. Some very nice, tight retailers, they got all of their primary stuff to load first, and all those third parties that you have to have in there, their DevOps guys got them all to load after doc complete. Beautiful stuff, right? It's a great tactic. But again, that company knew how to invest, and they found good people who's decided to stick with the company for a number of years. And you know how that goes. You have to find the people, make them available, right? You have to keep on top of this stuff. It has to be cooperative with the people who want to put stuff in, DevOps, and again, the creatives. Then there's below the fold loads. This is more trickery and sorcery as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I know, it's like programmatic. It's like as soon as it comes up, you load more, right? It does minimize the footprint of what's going to be loaded first, absolutely. You can optimize your load order, just like I said, location of the page, same kind of thing, right? The problem with all of this is that no one has the time or the money to do it all. So you want to get that sweet spot down to 2 seconds, but you've got lots of different pages that need to go into the site, and you're going to measure it, and you're going to see that absolutely when we can slow it down, we absolutely will see more conversions, we'll get more revenue, but then people are always trying to shove more things in there, and you're going to have this constant fight. What we try to do at Instart Logic is we actually have an automatic optimization capability here. We use something called the Nanovisor. What it does actually is gather stats. It's a really cool thing. What it does is it gets injected automatically, it doesn't change the application itself, comes down in the endpoint, and then starts to monitor everything that's happening. So hey, HTML, for example, HTML caching. If you can cache HTML, that's great, but when you have dynamic content, different story. The header is going to be continuously changing is the concept, so you can't really cache it. Well, actually, maybe you can. What if you've got something running on the endpoint that said, all right, across all of the desktops that are out there running on Chrome or Firefox right now, right, we notice that there's some 60% of content that's always the same between different page loads. Even though it's dynamic, it's fairly static, right? That's the kind of thing you can pay somebody to identify, but it's even better if you've got something gathering stats, knowing what gets used and what doesn't, so then it can preload it on the edge and send it down. This is actual machine learning at work for you. This will optimize the performance automatically. You can now cut out the expense of having lots of extra professional services people, and you can increase your distribution time, right? You could, you can decrease the time. You can actually increase the frequency by which you are able to release. Much more dynamic, right? Because you don't have to worry about having made an investment to minify and optimize a specific page and then worry about breaking it and freezing everything. You can say, well, no, when we push something out, it's going to be automatically optimized. So you throw all this together, and we're seeing e-commerce revenue going up about 5%, advertising revenue, because we help companies reclaim ads that are being blocked by ad blockers, another 3 to 10%, and performance going up by 20%. So it is real. And we see it as well when we actually convert people off of Akamai. So here's an example where we were using Blue Triangle to monitor page load speed over time. And at first what happened is that we noticed that these were the main conversion points for several key pages that were happening before they switched over. And you can see right? This here, page load time, right? There's your conversion rate. So what we noticed is that after they converted, not only did their site get faster, but all those points moved into that right there, that's 3 seconds. So most of them moved before the 3 seconds. There you go, between 2 and 2.5 seconds. Big chunk of the content right there. That's an increase in revenue when you're able to move it across the dial. Because with our application, what we're doing is we're actually performing those optimizations for every single website page, I should say. You don't have to focus your professional services budget on just one page. Right? You can throw the whole professional services budget away and just let optimization happen across the entire site. And it's for things like JavaScript and HTML, right, content, image optimization. So we're consistently moving customers from 4 seconds and above into the sweet spot with 28% higher conversion rates. That's what we're seeing with our customers. More conversion rates, more revenue. That's pretty much the platform, right? You know, it's a unified platform. This is one of the marketing slides I have to throw in. But you know, it's like we have a cloud end, we have a security end. We actually have a mobile application end as well. Layer 4, if you can speed up layer 4, all your optimizations, they don't actually matter as much. It's great when you can optimize your code, but we have an SDK. What it does is it actually takes and gets rid of TCP, replaces it with a proprietary protocol. And the idea is that between adaptive rate control and redundant data packets with forward error correction, we're actually able to stop the number of round-trip transmissions that happen for an application, a mobile native application. That, 20% is an easy number. I typically see things 60 to 80% performance improvements in raw throughput. So it's a great trick. Anyway, that's what I had. I had 20 minutes, and I managed to get it done in almost the whole time, 4:07. So I have 3 minutes left. Questions, anyone? OK. Question in the back. Yes, thank you.
We've been hearing about the edge caching all day long. This replaces.
It's more of a last mile optimization. So because of that so we would work with the edge cache, say, grab something from a local node. We have our own performant middle mile acceleration. But say, for example, like I like to say we're like 20 milliseconds from 98% of the world's population. But like one of our nodes here, right in New York, another one's in Chicago. So if there was an edge cache nearby, you could absolutely leverage it. But this would be the application working in conjunction with the CDN. So consider it adjacent. It's a fair question. Any other questions? OK. Well, cards for a watch. Thank you very much. We'll right up here.